I never thought I would find myself in this situation. My husband had gone on one of his frequent business trips, leaving me alone in our sprawling house, the silence almost deafening. It was supposed to be just another weekend, but little did I know that night would unravel something forbidden, something that would keep me awake until the sun painted the sky with hues of dawn. It all started innocently enough. My husband's nephew, Daniel, was staying with us for the summer. Daniel had always been the quiet, observant type, with an enigmatic charm that could light up any room without him even trying. That night, I was in the kitchen preparing a light dinner when he walked in, his presence a gentle disruption to my solitude. "Need any help?" His voice was soft, yet there was something in his tone that made my heart skip a beat. "Sure," I replied, handing him a knife to chop vegetables. Our hands brushed against each other, and for a fleeting moment, our eyes met. There was a spark, a silent understanding that neither of us dared to voice. We cooked in companionable silence, the air thick with unspoken tension. After dinner, we moved to the living room, the soft glow of the lamp casting long shadows. We sat on opposite ends of the couch, a comfortable distance that felt like a chasm. "Do you ever feel lonely?" he asked, breaking the silence, his gaze piercing through the dim light. His question caught me off guard. I hesitated before answering. "Sometimes." There was a vulnerability in his eyes, a reflection of my own hidden desires. The conversation drifted to lighter topics, but the tension remained, an undercurrent that neither of us could ignore. As the night wore on, the distance between us shrank. We talked about everything and nothing, our words a mere distraction from the magnetic pull drawing us closer. At some point, our shoulders brushed, and neither of us moved away. The world outside ceased to exist. It was just the two of us, locked in a dance of temptation. The first touch was tentative, almost accidental. His fingers grazed mine, sending a jolt of electricity through my body. I looked up, meeting his gaze, and in that moment, we both knew there was no turning back. His lips found mine, soft and searching, a kiss that spoke of longing and restraint. We pulled back, breathless, the weight of our actions hanging heavy in the air. But the fire had been ignited, and there was no extinguishing it. He leaned in again, his kiss more urgent, more demanding. I responded with equal fervor, surrendering to the forbidden thrill. The night unfolded in a blur of stolen touches and whispered confessions. We explored each other with a hunger that had been suppressed for far too long. Every caress, every kiss was a declaration of the passion that had simmered beneath the surface. As the hours slipped by, we found ourselves in my bedroom, the moonlight casting a silver glow over our entwined bodies. Daniel was gentle yet insistent, his touch igniting a fire that consumed me. We moved in harmony, our bodies speaking a language of their own. The intensity of our connection was overwhelming. It was as if we had been waiting for this moment our entire lives, the forbidden nature of our union adding an intoxicating edge. We were lost in each other, the outside world forgotten. When the first rays of dawn filtered through the curtains, we lay tangled in each other's arms, the reality of our actions crashing down upon us. We knew we had crossed a line, one that could never be uncrossed. But in that moment, as the sun rose, we didn't care. All that mattered was the connection we had shared, the night that had changed everything. As the day began, the weight of our actions settled heavily on my shoulders. Guilt gnawed at the edges of my conscience, but so did the lingering desire for the man who had become more than just my husband's nephew. Daniel looked at me, his eyes filled with a mixture of regret and yearning. "We can't let this happen again," I whispered, my voice barely audible. He nodded, but the look in his eyes said otherwise. The line had been crossed, the boundaries blurred. We were trapped in a web of our own making, bound by a night of passion that neither of us could forget. The days that followed were a whirlwind of stolen glances and secret smiles. We tried to maintain a semblance of normalcy, but the tension between us was palpable. Every touch, every brush of our fingers reignited the fire that had been lit that night. One evening, as we found ourselves alone once again, the inevitable happened. The pull was too strong, the temptation too great. We succumbed to our desires, the passion that had simmered beneath the surface exploding in a frenzy of need. This time, there was no hesitation, no second-guessing. We knew the consequences, but in that moment, the only thing that mattered was the undeniable connection we shared. Our love was a dangerous game, one that could destroy everything, but we were too far gone to care. The cycle continued, each encounter more intense, more consuming than the last. We were addicted to the thrill, the forbidden nature of our love adding a layer of excitement that was impossible to resist. But with every stolen moment, the weight of our secret grew heavier. We lived in a constant state of fear and exhilaration, our love a double-edged sword. The guilt gnawed at us, but the desire was too strong to ignore. We were caught in a whirlwind of passion and regret, each moment together a dangerous dance on the edge of disaster. As the summer drew to a close, the reality of our situation became impossible to ignore. Daniel would be leaving, and our secret would be buried beneath layers of normalcy. But the memories of our nights together would remain, a haunting reminder of the love that could never be. The final night was a bittersweet farewell, a last taste of the forbidden fruit. We made love with a desperation born of impending separation, our bodies clinging to each other as if trying to imprint the memory onto our souls. When the sun rose, we parted ways, our hearts heavy with the weight of our love. In the days that followed, the house felt emptier than ever. The silence was a stark contrast to the whirlwind of emotions that had filled it just weeks before. I went through the motions of daily life, but my mind was consumed by thoughts of Daniel. My husband returned, oblivious to the turmoil that had unfolded in his absence. I played the role of the dutiful wife, hiding my guilt behind a facade of normalcy. But every time I closed my eyes, I was transported back to those nights. The memory of Daniel's touch a lingering ghost that refused to be exorcised. I knew I had to move on, to bury the past and focus on the present. But the heart is a fickle thing, and mine was torn between duty and desire. The love I felt for Daniel was a dangerous addiction, one that I couldn't shake, no matter how hard I tried. As the weeks turned into months, the intensity of my emotions began to fade, replaced by a dull ache that never truly went away. I threw myself into my marriage, trying to reignite the spark that had been lost, but the shadow of my betrayal loomed large, a constant reminder of the forbidden love that had consumed me. Every now and then, I would receive a message from Daniel, a simple, "I miss you," that would send my heart racing. I knew it was wrong, but I couldn't resist the pull of our connection. Our love was a dangerous secret, one that we both knew could never be exposed. As time went on, the messages became less frequent, the distance between us growing with each passing day. But the memory of our nights together remained, a haunting reminder of a love that defied the boundaries of right and wrong. In the end, we were left with nothing but memories, a bittersweet reminder of a love that could never be. Our story was one of passion and regret, a forbidden romance that had burned brightly, but was destined to fade away. Yet, in the quiet moments of solitude, I found myself longing for the nights when we had played with fire, our love a dangerous game that had kept us awake until the sun came up.